news because actually I opened my calendar yesterday 4 a.m. in the morning, and I
Hmm.
found all the lectures shifted 1 hour, and I was confused why that happened. So you elaborated the reason that yesterday you have shifted the clock.
Yes.
Yeah.
But is that everywhere in the world? Or
For us, we have stopped that a couple of years ago,
yeah.
but a new regulation have been published the past week that we are going to do the same, but I think the next month.
Okay.
Yeah.
Um, I think some of the states here have stopped it, and I guess we have to agree to do it. All of us have to agree. But yeah, just keep the time the same. It's confusing. We don't need it. The initial reason why we did it is no longer valid. So it was back where we needed to save energy. We all have all the energy we need. So anyway, hope you guys had a great week. Wanted to see if there were any questions about last week's lecture. We had a lot of different financial tools to measure the financial health of the business. And I'm looking to see some of those tools in your business plan presentation. So are there any questions or comments about last week before we get started today?
Yes, I had a question
Yes.
on using surveys.
Hmm.
Let's say it's a small business and you cannot do the normal surveys. Can you like record and you cannot also use the reviews that are usually online? It's just a small business. How can I get like feedback if it's a small shop or a small hotel?
There are a couple ways to do that. You can, the first thing I want to say that when you do surveys, you have to make it anonymous, right? Because you want people to be honest so that they don't put their name or their email or their phone number on the survey. You're just collecting data. So make sure that you let them know that it is 100% anonymous so that none of the feedback will point back to them. So that's the first thing I want to say. And then you could do a simple Google form that goes to the email of the person. Um, you can do and that way that people can do it in their own time on their own schedule. So that's one thing I would totally recommend, like a simple Google form. Make it short so it doesn't take them that long to fill it out, and make it I would make it multiple choice questions, and then have one question where they can write comments in. So you're making it very convenient for them. So that would be my recommendation. Hopefully that helps to get started.
Yes, and also can the frequency of similar customers be a review? Like if a particular set of customers keep coming, is that a good review for your business, or is it because like there's no other business? Can you use it also as a review for yourself?
Say that again. I'm not really following. Say that again.
Like if the same customers keep coming to your business, is it can you use
Mhm.
it as a review for
Yeah.
yourself?
Yeah. Yes,
Okay,
you
thank
can,
you.
because you might want to assess over time what their feedback is, especially if you have something new that you've introduced, maybe a new menu if it's a restaurant, or you know, new items or new decor or what have you. You want to see what their reaction is to it. And then you also want to see, even if you don't have anything new, you want to measure if they're still feeling the same way that they felt So you're looking at the past data and the current data and see if there's a change, and if there's a change, you want to find out why. Like a good change is if they rated you a 4 before, 4 out of 5, and now it's 5 out of 5, that's great. If they rated you a 4 and now they're rating you a 3, then you might want to find out why, what's changed, what's the reason for that. So you're evaluating the data from the past and the current data. It's kind of like a regression analysis. And it's always, I'm glad you're asking these questions, Winnie, because it's always good to hear from your stakeholders. And as I mentioned to you before, you have two types of stakeholders, internal and external. Your internal stakeholders are your employees, and your external are your customers. So you want to make sure that you hear from both of them periodically. And then the optics of you doing surveys lets them know that you care about what they're thinking. So it's a great idea to do surveys. Again, you want to make sure they're 100% anonymous, so people don't have any fear of being honest, and they're not fearing any kind of retaliation from their manager or their leader because they're being honest. So I always 100% honest. And then you're only looking at the data, really. You're just looking at the data, because numbers don't lie. People do. All right, great questions. Any other questions about the lecture last week and what how you need to incorporate that into your business plan? Okay, before we start today, I wanted to mention to you about the business plan presentation. What I would like to do is have you either, I'm going to see how this works for the last class, either record your presentation so that you submit a presentation, but you're actually presenting. And let me just share my screen for 1 second. I want to show you. If you don't know how to do that in PowerPoint, it's very easy to do. And what I would like is for every person on the team to present some aspect of the business plan. Part of what this exercise is to see how you collaborate, number one, and then also see how you communicate and present this this plan to an investor, if you will. So let's see. I'll use last week's slides. So I'm going to share my screen. So again, you record your presentation. I'm going to look at the schedule to see if we can do it live, but I want to put this out there now so you know that you are presenting either live or recorded. So if you are what's happening here? Oh, there it is. Okay. It's waking up. It's still sleeping. So let's say this is your business plan presentation, and you want to present it and narrate over it. So you go to the slideshow, which has now moved to my other screen. Let me reshare this. I've got multiple screens, and this thing has moved to the other screen. Okay. So we're in slideshow, and you go to, if you want to play it from the beginning. Ease. Sorry about that. I've gotta not protect this. Okay. So you would do record here. And there are several options when you record. You can record from the current slide or from the beginning. So let's say we want to record from the beginning. Okay, so my thing is already recording because this session is being recorded, so the device is not available. So this is the record button. Start the recording. 3, 2, 1, there's a countdown. And you say, hello, I'm going to be presenting chapter 8, business and financial analysis. And we're going to look at how to evaluate the health of the business through financial data. And then you move to the next slide and notice the recording is still going on. So I'm getting that error because I'm recording the session that we're doing right now, but you would not get that error. So this is how you would record your presentation. And then what you would do ahead of time, you would set up who's going to say what. One person would be in charge of the recording and moving the slides forward. And then whoever needs to talk about those slides, they would talk about it. Once you're done, you can export this into a video. And then that would be your presentation. So let me stop here to see if there are any questions. Any questions about what's required of the team to do? Questions? Okay, again, every team member must present some aspect of the business plan. So it's a team effort still. So perhaps you might talk about that in your session today with your team. I'm going to see if there's a way for you to do it live so that the rest of the class can see the presentation. But it depends on what we have to go over in the lecture for that final week. So stay tuned. All right. Has any of you used the record feature in PowerPoint before? Raise your hand if you've used the record feature before. No one has. Okay. Great feature for when you want to send a video out. So there's a question here. Is there a time limit? Yes. I'm thinking between 10 to 20 minutes. However, I haven't settled on it. It might be 15 minutes. So there's a time limit. So you've got to be succinct and you've got to be, nail all the points in there, especially if you have several people. One of the things that I recommend to do is practice the presentation. And you'll have time in your team rooms to do that, to practice it. If you're practicing by yourself, one of the things that I do if I'm practicing by myself is to record myself. I've heard people say, look in the mirror and when you're practicing a presentation or an interview. But if you look in the mirror, you can fix what it is that you're doing wrong, which is not realistic. So if you record yourself, you can see what you're doing and then you can fix it afterwards. So you can do both if you want, but I highly recommend that you do practice. So you know how much time you have, how much time you have as that ask, so that you know that you won't go over the time and you are hitting all the points. So Olena says use Vimeo. Vimeo is fine as well. Okay, let us go to today's presentation. It's all about how to organize the business legally. And based on the type of business or the industry you're in, you might choose different ways to organize legally. So let's take a look at that today. And I'm going to go to classroom. And see if there are any more questions. Today's week 9. We're moving right ahead. We've got about 5 more to go. And more sessions. It's a rainy day in Georgia. There's a song called Rainy Night in Georgia, and that is what we have today. But it's been raining most of the week because we're getting ready for the spring flowers.
Long Island is still pretty blessed today. We have like sunny day here.
Oh, nice. Nice.
Yeah, but it was raining rest of the week though.
Now, I heard that there were some snowstorms or some storms in New York yesterday or the day before. Is that true?
That was a day to day before actually. It's been a couple of days that happened,
Yeah.
but then it's been yesterday was also great.
Oh, nice. I have a friend that lives there, and my marketing manager lives in New York, so I get a lot of New York weather
Professor,
report.
little curious about your background, that quote, you know less than you don't know.
Oh, this is my book.
Oh,
This is I had a meeting yesterday, so I always prop it up. This is my leadership. It's our leadership playbook
great.
that was
Yeah.
published last year. It says, you know less than you don't know. Transformation, not change, is key to success. So it reorients leaders from the concept of change to transformation, which is incremental progress as opposed to one and done. And it also talks about it's a leadership playbook for the future. So anything that's future facing is talked about in here. Remote leadership. A lot of leaders struggle with leading remotely. There's the employee well-being. The case study I did for my doctorate is in there. I interview leaders, so it's a playbook for leaders. It's really interesting. The last week when I spoke to the PMI, there's a chapter that I kind of focused on in the presentation. That's transformational leadership and organizational change management. So very viable. So yeah. I forgot I had my natural background and not like a virtual background there. So you can see everything that's happening in my office. Okay. Make sure. Okay. Now my plants look like they need water. Now I'm looking around and paying attention to my office. Okay. Yes. The video is yes. So to Winnie, yes, the class that I'm suggesting we were talking about it, offering it as a part of the program. There is a leadership elective class, but it's not the same. The leadership class that currently it's more operational, where this is more strategic. So offering that, and then also offering a certification, so someone can just get the certification if they don't want to take the entire class. The video that we did, PMI recorded the video, so they only have it available if you're a PMI member, which I'm not a PMI member. I'm going to ask them if I can have a copy for myself for my own personal use, and then I'll share it with you. I'll give you a link. So I know that who's a PMI member? Is it
Um,
Samia?
yeah, yeah, Professor, I'm not PMI member. I did PMP certification, but I never became the member. I just paid
Yeah.
on the hand. I know they give some discount if you become a member, but I was
Yeah.
thinking that on a long term, how useful it will be for me, because I can get those credits to maintain my certification on other platforms as well. I can go on Udemy or somewhere and then get those credits. And I
Yes.
already did that. So yeah, no, I
Yeah.
never.
So yeah. So the same with me, Samia. I got the PMP certification years ago, and then I was joining the PMI local chapter, if you will.
Mhm.
I did it for a while, but I wasn't involved or doing anything with it. And I was getting my PDUs because I was teaching PMP boot camps
Right.
at the time. So I just fell off. So I'll try to get a copy of the video that I can just show here. The reason why
Sure.
they want to own it is because people pay
Yeah,
to watch it to get their PDUs. So they don't want
right.
it to be public domain. So I understand that. So I will ask, I'll ask let me ask, let me do this. Ask my marketing team to reach out to them.
Thank you, Professor.
Yeah, you're welcome. I'll do it as I'm thinking. Actually, I'm gonna send an email so it doesn't look urgent, like wake up and do this thing. And they did tell me that they would give me a copy of it, but I haven't gotten it. So let's remind them. And if I get a copy, I will post a link to it so you guys can. It's kind of like a preview to the course, to the certification that I'll be you're welcome. That I'll be offering. Okay, let's see what happens. All right. So let's look at building the business today. I'm going to share my screen. Today's class is going to be very informative because you learn about the different legal structures, and it's going to give you pause to think about how you want your business to be created legally, aligned legally, formed legally. Peace. Okay, building the business. So we're going to talk about the different forms and different ways to legalize your business. Again, it's going to depend on the type of business that you have, the size of it, the industry you're in, and so forth. We're going to talk about contracts. And I know we discussed different ways to fund your business, and we talked about leasing, where your supplier can extend credit to you and so forth. So we're going to talk about the contracts that's involved in that. In business, it's very important that everything is in writing, because people change over time, and they may have meant one thing one time and another time they mean something else. So even if you're doing business with your family members and your friends, it's advised that you put it in writing. So, um, so we look at how the different laws and rules and regulations benefits new businesses. We're going to talk about copyrights, trademarks, and patents, and see that's something that's applicable to your business. And we're going to talk about insurance in terms of mitigating the risk or risks in your business, and how to develop your board of advisors or board of directors. Okay. So let's take a look at legal forms of businesses. This is how, when you organize your business, you there's a reporting agency that you subscribe to, and you are organizing your business in one of several ways, and you're making it legal. So if someone looks up your business, or if there's any type of issue or legal issues or liability, the type of business prescribes what happens in those legal issues. So let's look at sole proprietorship and partnership. Okay. So sole proprietorship is very simple. It's when you and if you see a lot, if you follow social media, a lot of individuals on there with their businesses, it's usually like a sole proprietorship, because it's very easy. One person owns a business, and the business and the person is one entity. That's if you are the brand for the business, then sole proprietorship is the way to go. It doesn't cost a lot of time or money to set it up. Easy to form, easy to dissolve. However, if there's any liability, the owner takes on that liability. So if I'm the brand and I'm a sole proprietorship and there's an issue and someone's suing the business, I take on that liability. So if you think that your business, if you believe your business carries liability with it, this is not the way to go. You don't want people coming after your personal assets. So your home, your car, your financial tools that you have, that's up for grabs if you're in sole proprietorship and there is any type of legal issue, such as liabilities. Okay. So if there are no liabilities, for example, let's say you are just giving advice. Well, there could be liabilities there as well. So I disrecommend sole proprietorship, but I think a lot of people on social media do it, especially if they're regurgitating stuff that's already happened. So there's no liability, and you can say allegedly. You hear them say allegedly a lot, allegedly, 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 so that you're stepping away from the liability, especially when you're reporting high-profile individuals or brands. You know, if let's say you're reporting about companies and you say, well, General Electric, did something bad, you would say allegedly they did this, and that kind of dissolves you from the liability. Okay, so if you're unsure or have a very small business, and if you have low cost and low risk, this is the way to go. All right, so single person business, like this dude here, he's selling stuff. He's at a bakery, looks like. He's got some coffee and what have you. So it's just him. He's got a little coffee shop. So he's a sole proprietorship. So let me ask this in the chat. And let me do a poll. The poll is waking up. New poll. Actually, I'll do this poll when I show you all the business types, so we can rank them. All right. So some of you started your business. Some of you have started business. Some of you have businesses. How many of you, raise your hand, started the business as a sole proprietorship? One owner, one investor. The business and you are the same entity. Anybody started their business like that? Just raise your hand if you did. Okay. Mohammed, all right, I see you. See anybody else? Mama, did you want to talk about that a little bit? What was your reasoning for starting as a sole proprietorship?
Hello, everyone. First of all, I'm very sorry being late because I was waiting the lecture at 5 and I did not pay attention for the message that the lecture started 1 hour earlier due to the summer timing in US. So I just
Yes,
right.
And I should have said something. I didn't even know it till a couple of days ago, but I take responsibility for that as well, because I should have said we started earlier.
No, it's okay.
Yeah.
It's okay. Thank you very much. Well, actually, I did many trials as entrepreneur previously. Maybe I was very young, not very young, but I would say I was just graduated from the Faculty of Engineering, but I wanted to sell perfumes.
Okay.
So,
yes.
yes, so I went to the whole or the store with the wholesale of the perfumes, and I started with a little amount of money, and I bought oil for the perfume, and then with the wholesale was the whole price. I mean the price for I don't know, but it was a price not for small amounts, but for big amounts. I bought this amount, and then I started to distribute it into smaller sizes, and they started to sell it. And after, I would say, a few months, I was able to return back the money which I started with, and at that time still I had also some extra oil with me, so I thought that I was able to return back the money, and still I have some of the inventory. That means I made some profit of my small project. This is what I did earlier.
Nice. How many years did you do that for?
About 2 years.
2 years? Okay, excellent. Excellent. That's a great example of sole proprietorship. Low risk, low cost, and the fact that you made a profit makes it even better.
And I have another experience also where I lost maybe a big amount of money, but at that time I was not alone. I was a partner in a small project as well, but I was not involving 100% in this project. And this was one of the really reasons that I learned out of it, that I should always be focusing in my small project in order not to lose and in order to win. But it was one of the lessons during my life.
Yes, lessons learned. Very important.
Yes.
Thank you. Thank you for sharing that. Okay. I don't see anyone else. Okay, so okay. Let's take a look at partnership. This is where you have individuals, so more than one person's. Just make sure I can see the chat. Okay. So 2 or more people, and they're general and limited types of partnership. Let's take a look at them. So general partnership is 2 or more people. It does require a partnership agreement. As I said before, this is gonna pervade. Always put things in writing. You can say a handshake. We talked about it. We had a conversation. We agreed. But if there's any liability that occurs out of it, your best bet is to have something in writing that explains what the partnership is. So who is involved, what each person is going to contribute, how profits, losses, and draws are to be treated. Draw is when you take money out for a bonus or something like that, or you want to, take some money out of the partnership for different reasons. There are specifications on how one partner can buy out another partner. So if one partner decides that I don't no longer want to be a part of this entity, then how can they be bought out? Because they obviously have investment. They also may have shares in the business. How do you bring on new partners? What are the rules that guide how you bring new partners into the business? And how do you settle disputes? Because there will be disputes. There's more than one people, there will be disputes. So this is what you should have in your agreement. At the very least, this is what you should have. The draw, as I said, is where you're pulling money out of the business. So any kind of cash, like cash advance, bonus, or year-end distribution. Usually when you have shares in the business, you might have year-end where you distribute the dividends to the partner who are shareholders in the business. So let's look at the advantages and the disadvantages of general partnership. So the advantage is that owners report profits or losses on their personal income tax. This is going to come into play because how you want to file your tax return. So you can report profits or losses on your personal income tax, and it doesn't take as big as hit as if you were, a C corporation or what have you. Business expenses flow through your personal tax. So if you have any business expenses, so for example, all the expenses we talked about when we looked at the cash flow and the other statements, they flow through your personal tax. So you have more expenses to deduct, which increases your return. And but there are some restrictions. The disadvantage is that on the one hand, you flow the profit and loss and through your income tax, and you flow the expenses. The disadvantage is that you are jointly liable for all debts incurred by the partnership. So if one partner incurs a lot of debt, everybody's responsible for it. So you want to make sure that you watch out for the best interests of other partners. So you're always making sure the partners are in line. So you have this responsibility to do so, because one for all and all for one, right? Let's take a look at limited liability partnership, LLP. So you have two classes of partners. You have the general partner, and in the limited liability, you have a manager of the firm who has unlimited liability for any debts or judgments against the firm. So of course, that is very that's significant, right? One person that takes on the liability for the entire firm. Okay. So you can have limited partners who work for the firm but cannot actively manage. So when you have the general partner, one partner in the firm must be the general partner. I don't see this a lot, to be honest with you, because of the liability. Corporations viewed as a separate entity, and this is what me as a non-lawyer, non-accountant, non-corporate lawyer, I recommend that you keep the entity separate. So my company is separate from myself. I don't mix my funds. I have a separate account for the bank account for the business. I file taxes for the business, and so forth. Keep it separate so that you don't incur any liability on your person and on your home and on your family, etc. So separate entity. So if the corporation suffers losses, let's say the corporation suffers $1 million loss, if you will. The only thing that you will lose is whatever you invested in it, potentially. So there, in this country, and I'm going to ask in a minute about the different types of legal entities that you have in your country. We have S Corp, S Corporation, C Corporation, and the LLC, Limited Liability Corporation. So let's take a look at them. So we have Amazon, headquartered in Seattle, Washington. So let's do a quick survey. We talked about the different types of how you put your organization together. Let's talk about what are the advantages of working for a corporation, which has the liability. It has its own liability. It is not something that any one person takes on. So I'm going to put a little quiz up here. And many of us work for a corporation. I do. I work for a corporation and I have a corporation. So question is, in a few words, in this word cloud, what are the advantages of working for a corporation? And I'm going to start off, I'm going to say the liability on the corporation. So what are the advantages? Think about the corporation that you work for and think about what the advantages are. Think about what we just talked about, what the advantages are. In terms of job security, yeah. Risk, yep. They take on the risk. And think about the different benefits you get in a corporation. Diversity of expertise, yep. Customers, processes, all great answers. Think about the benefits you get in terms of you get health insurance, you get pinky therapy. I told you guys I broke my pinky and I'm now in pinky therapy. So I go every week and get my pinky looked after. You have training where you can, train up. You have opportunities for growth, there's stability as a corporate culture. And because corporations are regulated, if you will, for the most part, they have to answer to a higher power, if you will. They have to answer to the government, answer to the law. So for the most part, they kind of do things right. But we know some of them that go left and they do things not right. So these are great responses. Stability and reputation. Competitive pay. Yes. You'll find that when you work for a corporation, that they may pay more than if you work for a business that's organized as a sole proprietorship, for example, because we talked about the reason why they're organized that way is because low costs. So they look at their costs. So yeah, great answers. All right, so let's go on looking at this corporation. So the S corporation, again, is a separate entity from the individuals. The income flows through, but they do have limitations on the number and type of shareholders. I believe it's 100 or something. Here are the advantages of S Corp. Limited liabilities for owners, check. Potential to consolidate financial statements of the business and the personal income for the tax benefit of the owners. So there's a tax benefit there because, as I talked about, you can flow your expenses. So as an individual, when you file a tax return, there's very little in terms of scope of what you can expense and say this is an expense. But businesses have a lot of things that you can write off. So it's easy to form, and it lets the optics are in the market is that you are legitimate. You're an established business. So usually if you look at a business and you say it's a sole proprietorship, you're like, man, not very sophisticated, new business, simple offerings. If you see a business that's an S Corp, you're like, okay, so they look like they're legit, if you will. I just saw some things coming for the word cloud. Networking is opportunity. Career start, good career start. Yeah. So disadvantages for the S Corp is forming is cumbersome and expensive to do so. And as I mentioned before, you have a maximum number of shareholders, 100. So you can't, the ownership is limited to 100 shareholders, 100 investors. So if you want to go public, obviously this is not the way to go, the S Corp. Okay. A lot of times what I've seen is that companies that are nonprofits will organize under an S corporation structure. C Corp. This is the type of business that I have, the C corporation. Again, the firm and the person are different. No limitations to shareholders, so you can have 1,000 shareholders. And then you are protected beyond your equity investment. So it's not just what you put in that's protected. It's the C Corp is going to protect you beyond that. So what are the requirements for these types of corporation? You need a corporate name. You need a location of the corporate headquarters. So if you're international, where are your headquarters? The nature of the business, the name, address, and titles of all the founders, the time horizon for the firm's existence, how long has it been in existence, authorized stock and capital. So you have to have stock certificates that you distribute at the beginning. And then you also have to have bylaws. These are the laws that govern how you operate the business, how the shareholders behave, what their responsibilities are, and so forth. So it's a little bit more complicated than the sole proprietorship or the partnership, as you can see. But it is well structured, and it does give the optics that you are established, know what you're doing, and then also that the corporation bears the liability. So the individuals are not thinking like, if something happens to me, I've got to depend on your assets to recover or to be made whole. The corporation takes the liability, right? So when I broke my pinky, the corporation, not the individuals in the corporation, they were able to take care of my medical bills and my pinky therapy that I have every week. So the limited liability corporation has limited liability, so it allows more investors and other corporations to hold stock. It could be one member. It allows the profits to be handled flexibly, and owners again can flow the profits through to their personal returns to avoid double taxation. So that's one of the attraction of the LLC, is that you can flow profits through to your personal returns. So you're not taxed double. You're not taxed on the corporation and taxed personally. Low cost formation, and then each state in terms of the United States, they have their own specifications for how you can organize as an LLC. All right. So here comes my other question. other poll. Thinking of the organization you formed in your teams, I'm going to ask you which type of organization do you think would benefit you most? I'm going to put it in a word cloud, so give me a second to pop it up. And I'll put it in parentheses in case you don't remember what the different types are. We got the sole proprietorship. We've got the partnership, corporation. Let's make sure that's all right. So I just launched a poll. So based on the type of business that you're starting, what is the best way to organize that business legally? So let's see what your thoughts are. You got the sole proprietorship, one person is the owner. I don't think that applies to you guys because you are operating as a team. So I'm thinking that you're going to be choosing between the general partnership or the limited liability partnership, or between the S Corp, the C Corp, or the LLC. So you want to choose, I see register here, I'm not sure what that means. So we got limited liability partnership is one way. And based on what I've seen in your interactions in your team, I would agree with that. Limited liability corporation, again, that's also a good choice. Okay, limited liability partnership. Good. Good. So you'll come to a consensus this week in terms of what you're offering, what type of structure you have, what potential liabilities exist, and so forth, and form under that umbrella. Now, in this country, I'm going to close this poll, open another one. And just for kicks, this time I guess more people will respond. What type of organization or legal organizations do you have in your own country? So let me put this out here. So in this country, we have these types here. So in your country, how are organizations structured legally? So let me see what you guys have there. How are you structured legally? Do you have corporations as well? Do you have this type? You saw the LLCs. So that's something that are in other countries besides the US. Any other legal entities in other countries? nonprofits. So nonprofit in this country is would be a corporation. So it's a nonprofit corporation. So it'd be an S corp in a lot of cases, where the C corp is for profit, the S corp is not for profit. This is what, at least that's what I've seen. You have stock companies, joint stock companies, okay. Gas and oil, national companies. So think about the structure as top level, very generic. So in this country, a gas and oil company would be under a C corp. So because it could be under C corp, I have a consulting business that's under C corp. So the legal entity is a very broad umbrella that covers a lot of different types of business. Sole proprietorship, cooperatives, state, JSC. I'm thinking JSC is a joint stock company. LLCs. Okay. So does anyone want to talk about if you have an entity that's different from what we have here in the US, do you want to talk about that? How that's structured and what that looks like legally? Like for instance, a joint stock company. That's an interesting kind of company. I would be interested to know more about how that's put together legally. Anyone want to speak on that? And that's the entrepreneur, individual entrepreneur. So in this case, it would be under sole proprietorship, if you will. State. Okay. All right. So again, you're going to decide how you're going to organize your specific company that you have put together for your presentation. And you always want to, whenever you communicate, you always want to consider your audience. So your audience for your presentation is going to be investors, potential investors that are going to, based on how you present your company, based on how viable it is, how lucrative it is, they're going to be willing to invest financially in the company. So think about that in terms of how you structure your company as well. For example, I know we ruled out sole proprietorship, but if you said that to a bunch of investors, they would probably be like, why? Why is it not a corporation? Right? Because again, liability. Okay. Let's move on to contracts. So a contract is an agreement between two parties, and there are tons of different types of contracts that you can use. I know that you can actually get sample contracts off the web. As long as there's signatures and there are terms and there's a date, it's a contract. Okay. So it doesn't have to be written, but as again, we're going to advise you to write things down so that people that have lapses in memory don't get lost. Here it is. This is what you said. In case you forgot, this is what was said, and this is what you signed up for. So when you do a contract, at the very least, you're going to talk about who the parties are in the contract. And when someone invests in your business, it's cause for a contract, right? Who the parties are, what each party agrees to do, and for what consideration. So they might agree to do this for this amount of money, or agree to do this for this amount of investment in the company. When the transaction is to take place. So when are you going to be fulfilling the terms of the contract? Dates. start date, end date, timing of any payments, timing of activities, and length of the contract. So you're going to state this contract is valid for 2 years or 5 years or in perpetuity. That means forever. Any warranties, how the contract can be terminated. Usually it can be terminated by either party. There's a statement that says this can be terminated by either party for valid reasons. Whether you can transfer the contract and which state laws apply to their contract if you are in different states, right? So which state will be the governing state? And in the United States, I don't know a lot about this, but a lot of corporations, they organize in the state of Delaware for some reason. I think the taxes are lower, but then, the state of Delaware would pervade in terms of which laws apply to the contract. So at the very least, this is what you should include in your contract. This is what can hold up in a court of law. Okay. Leases. We talked about capital equipment a couple lectures back, is in that you might lease your equipment. You may not want to buy it. You might lease it. And we lease cars in this country. We lease homes. We lease equipment. So when you have a lease, it's also an agreement. What exactly is being leased? Can you renew the lease? Who's responsible for improvements? Maintenance. So if I lease a car, I'll use that as an example, and there needs to be some improvement on the car or some maintenance, who's responsible for it? Is it the lessor or the leasee? Okay. Who carries the liability insurance? And at what level? Is it comprehensive? Is it, only certain aspects that are covered? Can the landlord, let's say you're leasing your physical brick and mortar store from a landlord, can they enter your place of business? There are specifications around that as well. And what are the procedures for addressing or resolving problems? Again, there are rules. If there are issues, how is it going to be resolved? A lot of times, firms will use arbitration where they have a party that is not involved, objective party, and they will listen to both sides and they'll resolve it. And in a lot of cases, it's easier and maybe more fair than taking it to court. So consider these aspects when you lease your building or your equipment. Make sure that there are guidelines in place for when you lease. Raise your hand if you are in your business that you are putting together, if you're going to be involved in leasing equipment or the location. Raise your hand if leasing comes into play in terms of your new business venture. Anyone going to lease? Going to be leasing? Lizette is going to be leasing. Okay. You and your team going to be leasing. All right. Okay. Excellent. So one aspect of your business plan presentation is to talk about what type of leases and what type of contracts you'll be entering into. Noran, you had a question? Or you had your hand raised?
By mistake, thank you.
Okay. All right, so we want to talk about, we're going to have some lease, we're going to lease our equipment or lease our building. We're going to have contracts for the following things. So make sure that is in your presentation. And that gives a good picture, because if I'm an investor in your business, I'm concerned about liability. What if something goes wrong? What's going to happen? So you have contracts in place to help people to do the right thing. That's what they're for. All right. So leases are multidimensional, carefully crafted before signing, and it prevents problems by investigating legal issues. And if you need experts to come in, you can. And that's where I talked about having an arbitrator to come in if there are issues. Okay. And look before you sign is advised. A lot of times people that are not ethical will capitalize on the fact that the person they're coming into a lease or an agreement with is not knowledgeable about contracts or leases or that specific topic. So you sign away things that you may not understand, or most of the liability now is on you and not on them, and so forth. And we see in cautionary tales, with contracts like recording contracts, or a big company coming into contract with a smaller company and taking advantage of them. So you want to exercise care when you sign a lease agreement or a contract. So how can you as a new business benefit from laws, rules, and regulations? You have fewer regulations than established businesses. In the state of Georgia, you can have, and I haven't checked this recently, but I believe it's still true. You can have a corporation and you can report no profits for up to 3 years. So because they know that you are new and you're, getting started, you can report no profit for 3 years. All right. So you're not taxed. That's the outcome. You're not taxed for 3 years. Okay. Some regulations apply regardless of your size. You need an EIN, employee identification number, and those are free. And you can just Google that and get a number, get an EIN for your business. And that shows that you're legit to the public, to potential investors. So make sure that you get an EIN for your business when you present your business plan. Payroll requirements. You want to ensure that you are putting into place a structure for paying people. So if you have employees, that is, if you have employees, you have to put that structure into place because you got to pay people. You may have unique specifications from city to city or from state to state, and of course from country to country. So different. You might have different regulations in your country because this is the United States. We're going to use this framework for putting our entity together. And then you have local information resources. As I said at the top of the class, we have the Small Business Association, the SBA, that has tons of resources for small businesses starting up or expanding and so forth. The ADA, the Americans with Disabilities Act, came into play to ensure that there is no discrimination against people that have disabilities. So if you have a business, and specifically if you are a brick and mortar, a BAM business, you have to have things in place for people with disabilities, such as parking spaces that are close to the building, if you will, ramps. Excuse me 1 second. Turn off the alarm. No one's breaking in. That's my brother leaving for church, but he forgot to turn the alarm off. So don't call the police. Okay. So yes, so they're ramps so that they can, operate their wheelchairs in and out of your establishment. And if you have 15 or more employees, this is where you need to have this in place. Some communities, all businesses have to have that. So in terms of accessibility, and that's physical. Now, in terms of hiring, managing, or dismissing persons with disabilities, there are also regulations in place. So in terms of hiring, for example, if you're hiring someone that is visually impaired, you want to make sure that your hiring practices cater to them. So if you have an online application, for example, that there's a screen reader that reads what's on the screen for them. So it's not cumbersome for them to fill out an application to work for your business. Okay. If they're working in your business, and your business is physical, that there are accommodations for them to be able to, let's say they're in a wheelchair, or let's say that they are visually impaired. You want to make sure that you have signage that's in Braille so they can read things like the men's room, ladies' room, exit, etc. Okay. So reasonable accommodations. Okay. So the law changes, and it could be different from state to state, from country to country, but that ADA is in place. What this doesn't mention, but I will mention it, is the DEIAB. DEIAB. It's diversity, equity, inclusion, accessibility, and belonging. DEIAB. Diversity, equity, inclusion, accessibility, belonging. This is for everyone else, is that you as a firm, you're practicing diversity, equity, inclusion. You're treating everybody the way that you would want to be treated. And you remember me saying this at the top of the class, is that we have these laws in place and these regulations in place. So a lot of companies in the US, they'll have some type of statement on their website about DEI. Sometimes they'll say DEI, but we keep adding letters to it because we're not getting it right. So it's DEIAB. So they'll say we hire without regard to race, gender, religion, sex, and a whole bunch of other stuff. They'll make that statement out front to say that we don't prescribe to exclusionary practices. During COVID, and if you remember when all eyes was on America, when the police was killing people on camera, I think everybody remembers that. A lot of companies pivoted, and they put their stance against police brutality. They made that public, like, we don't condone this. But they also ramped up their DEI on their websites. We don't discriminate, because what we saw on camera with the police was just a tip of the iceberg to pervading discrimination against certain peoples. So they put out there, hey, we don't discriminate, and so forth. But some of the things that I've observed as a researcher is that it was a pandemic pivot. Like, it was just for show in a lot of cases, and they really didn't practice that. But what I subscribe to is that you treat everyone the way that you want to be treated. If you are a man, you treat women on the job the way that you would like your mother, your sister, or your wife to be treated. If you're a woman, you treat the men the way that you'd want your brother or your husband or your dad or whatever to be treated. Just treat people right. So we don't have to have these laws and stuff. So they don't mention it here, but you definitely want to, in your business plan, have a statement about diversity, equity, and inclusion, so that, again, you're appealing to a larger market of investors, right? So food regulations, big stuff. I will tell you this: when I go to other countries, I feel like they care more about what their citizens eat than we do here, allegedly, right? So, we get a lot of foods with all kind of fillers and fats and processing in this country. And, I think the regulations should be tightened, and you've got to take your own health into your own hands. So you got to make sure that you eat properly and select the right foods for yourself. But we have this whole obesity thing in the United States because the food is not good. You know, food is not good. The food for mass consumption is not good. You can make your own food, obviously. But there has been a significant elevation of public awareness because of COVID. So if your organization is going to sell food or make food or whatever, make sure that all the protocols for hygiene are in place. So you're caring for the safety of your customers, and there's liability there, right? Because if someone comes in there and they get food poisoning or they get sick because of the food, there's a liability there for the company. So make sure that if you're selling any kind of food products that you are observing all the protocols to make sure that your food is safe for consumption. Let's look at some licenses and permits. In the United States, if you're a business, you need a business license. And the business license is administered through the city that you live in. I live in Fayette County, or in my case, the county. The county, the city, sometimes the state. So I have a business license in the state of Georgia. But it's administered through Fayette County. If you're selling alcoholic beverages, the ABC controls, the board controls the license. You have to have a liquor license to sell liquor. And if you don't, there are significant penalties. You also need occupancy permits. If you're a physical location, you want to have permits for X amount of people. And you see that in buildings, they'll say maximum occupancy 2,000 or 100, whatever. So you want to make sure that you stay within those constraints. You need a federal, liquor license if you're selling, nationally. So alcohol, tobacco, firearms, and explosives fall under this umbrella. Business license again from the local and county authorities. Sign permits, if you have signage, you have to have a permit to have that sign up. And not this, when you have a sign in your building, the city is going to specify, how big the sign is, how far above the ground it is, and all this other stuff. So it's not obstructive. OSHA, which is Occupational Safety, Health Administration. I believe that's what it stands for. Let me just double check real quick. OSHA. Well, they have the website, but they don't say what they are. Welcome to OSHA. They're like, you should know what it is. All right, OSHA definition. Yeah, that's what it is. Occupational Safety and Health Administration. Okay. For food handling. Okay, so it also comes into place for working conditions as well. So if you have individuals working in your organization, for example, if you go to a store like Walmart, which is a huge store in the States, the cashiers who stand there all day to ring up your stuff, they have this magnetic type of mat that they stand on that alleviates back pain, and it keeps your legs healthy because you're standing for hours. So it has to do with the workplace, how safe the workplace is. And then fire safety permits. So you want to make sure that you have the right things in place for in case there's a fire. There are exit signs and there's extinguishers and things like that. So these are examples of licensing and permits. It's not a comprehensive list, but this is like the major ones that you would need in operating business. Make sure that if you need any license and permits, you state that in your business plan. You don't have to get the license, but you're going to state this is what you'll need to operate. Copyright is for intellectual property. So if there's any intellectual property where you kind of, write a book, you've done artwork, music, whatever, you can copyright that. So you're protecting your intellectual property. And now they have, what do we have for the digital intellectual property? What's that word that they're using now? NFTs, right? Non-fungible tokens. That's a way to protect your electronic intellectual property. NFTs. Trademark is intellectual property that's associated with a specific business. So your business might have a specific trademark. For example, we have Kentucky Fried Chicken here, and I know it's global. So there's a trademark on the recipe. So it's protected. Only KFC has it. I did see on social media the other day that some disgruntled employee shared the recipe on social media. Not sure if it's true or not. So it could be the name of the firm, could be a trademark or a symbol, or the name of his products. These are trademarks. So this has to do with the firm. And a patent is a specific innovation. So patents are valid for 20 years. And then they're first to file, granted on a first to file basis. I mentioned Shark Tank a few times. And if someone comes to the sharks and they have an innovation, the sharks will ask, is this patented? Or is patent pending? So if something is innovative, they're like, did you patent it? Because someone else can copy it. And then, as we see here, first to file, the first person that files it, they own the patent. So patents are expensive to obtain and maintain. And that's why a lot of times the businesses will say the patent is pending. We applied for it, but we didn't go all the way through. And if you apply for it, you have a certain amount of time to kind of fulfill that application process. Okay. So types of patent, you have utility, design, and planned patents. It can be a potential barrier to entry. So if you have a patent on something, that means other people can't copy it and they can't occupy the same space in the market as you because you have all rights to that particular patent. A patent is only recognized in the country that you file it in. So if you want your patent to be recognized in different countries, you've got to file patent protection in those countries. So if you in the business that you're bringing to bear here in your presentation, if there's any patents or trademarks or intellectual property associated with it, then you want to make sure that you call those out and specifically, talk about how you would protect those types of innovations. Insurance. So I think we're all familiar with insurance. It's a way to mitigate liability. So you can have property insurance to cover your building, fixtures, inventory. So in case there's a fire or flood or robbery, you can replace them. So one of the concerns is that, is it replacing the cost of it or the current value? So if you have like a 10-year-old cell phone, the current cost, the replacement cost is, I'm going to get you a new phone, or is it what the current value is? So you want to look at that. One is more than the other. All right, so fire, windstorm, hail, and smoke are standard. If you want, if you live in, or if your business is in a place where there are floods and earthquakes and hurricanes, then you might want to have a special policy for that. Like in the state of Florida, Florida usually has a lot of hurricanes, which produce floodings. If you're in the state of California, they may have a lot of earthquakes, so you want to consider that as well. Other types of insurance. So liabilities, like if you have a lawsuit, that's a liability. Like doctors have liability insurance. I think it's medical malpractice insurance, that in case somebody sues you for, cut their ear in half or something. Bonding is damage done by employees. So sometimes in specific cases, especially in construction, you have employees are bonded. So if they jack up your house, there's insurance to cover the damage that they've done. And then you have workman's comp, or workman's compensation insurance. So if you're injured on the job, you pay for that person that's injured, their hospital bills, and they get a salary while they're out and so forth. So these are different types of insurance. If this applies to your entity that you're forming, make sure you lay that out in your presentation, the types of insurance you'll have. So we come across some really key points today that you want to include in your presentation for your business venture. Let's talk about the board of advisors and boards of directors. So you want to have at least some people to advise you. And that's why we talked about earlier in the class about your family, and I asked you about family members who have started businesses and what kind of knowledge you can get from them. They can operate as your board of advisors because they've started a business before, or they have experience in this facet of the business, okay? So these advisors are not necessarily getting paid, although with the large corporations, they're getting paid, but they're providing you advisory services. If you are a corporation, you must have a board of directors. So if you're an S Corp or a C Corp, there's a board of directors, okay? So the shareholders, like in your case here for this business you're doing for this class, every person in the team is a shareholder, I'm thinking. So your shareholders are your board of directors. So it's one and the same. And you're bringing different skills to the table in terms of directing and advising and managing the organization. So let's talk about how you would select your board of advisors. They have the licensing that they need. Let's say they're advising you on legal aspects of a fuel company. So they would have to be an attorney that is licensed in that area and so forth. If you have someone that's advising you about retail, for example, there are certain regulations that guide retail operations and so forth. New startup experience, people that have, like Muhammad shared earlier, he has several experiences in starting up a new business and being successful. So that they have that kind of experience. If you have someone that's going to advise you financially, obviously they have financial background. Same thing with human resources. They have experience in managing people and hiring people and so forth and so on. So make sure that you are tapping into specific areas. So I don't want you to make this a big deal in terms of your board of advisors. Look within your team for what each person brings to the table and let them advise in the scope of their expertise. So you're not going out and finding a board of advisors. You have it right there in your team. And that's why we did the exercise earlier about, your experience. What do you bring to the table? Because it's going to come to bear in advising. If we run into a crunch, we're looking to you to help us out. So that was chapter on the legal formation of your business. It was a little bit lengthy, but it's very important that you consider that when you form a business, IRL in real life, or when you present your business plan. So I'm going to stop sharing, and then we're going to take our break for today. See if there's any questions in the chat. All right. All right, any questions about the lecture? Any questions about anything we talked about today? Questions, comments?
Well, I have a comment for the quiz of last time because because I missed it. It was the last day. It was 11th of March, and I was in a business trip, and I couldn't realize that I have to finish it before today. So I try to look in today, even if I will not have the full mark or whatever, but I found it closed. Is there any possibility that it will reopen just to add even without not the full mark, or what passed is passed?
Yes, let's so we're talking about quiz number 8, Mohammed.
Yes.
I will open quiz 8, and that's for everybody that wants to take it over. So I'll open quiz 8 up, and you can take it.
Thank you very much. Appreciate too much your support.
You're welcome. Any other questions or comments?
Dr. Patricia, is there different if we submit our work on time or even it's late? Is it the same?
No. What I usually do, and that's a great question, is that overall, I look at overall how you're performing. That's why when you rate each other in the teams, it's an overall type of rating. So people that consistently submit their work on time, of course, you'll be assessed differently than, if someone is not submitting their work on time.
Okay, thank you for that answer.
Yeah. You're welcome. So let me do another day on here. Okay, so the quiz is open. So if you want to take it again, for those who took it already, if you want to take it again for a higher grade, feel free to do so. Let us now take our break. So I think last week we settled on 20 minutes. So let's see what this week bears. So give me 1 second. So in this little word cloud, type in your response. I think I have 15 participants. I'm looking for 15 entries. How long do you want your break to be today? We have up to half an hour. And I owe you 5 minutes from last week. I didn't forget. So let's see 15 responses, and I'll take the one that's most prevalent. So far, we've got 6 responses. Got 9. We need 6 more responses to call it a quorum. John, are you trying to respond audibly? Hello? Maybe not. Okay, looking for some more responses before we close the poll. All righty. So we have 30 minutes. That's the one that people want. People want a longer break today. So let me see, 9 people said 30, 6 said 25, 21. Okay, let's do this. Let's split it down the middle. Let's do 25 minutes. So let's come back at let's come back at 12. That's not 25 minutes, is it? Yeah, let's come back at 12. Let's resume at 12. Keep it clean. All righty. All righty, welcome back, everyone. Before we go into our team rooms, are there any questions? Questions or comments? All right, I take that as a
Professor,
yes. Ahmed.
regarding the written assignments, if we like, there are some assignments I was not able to finish. I know, and I am okay with like, I will not get a full mark or something like that, but we can still upload it, right?
Which assignment are you speaking of? Do you know which one?
Uh,
Why don't you send me a WhatsApp? Send me a
I will
WhatsApp.
send you a WhatsApp better. Yes.
Yeah, let me know which one. Yeah. But
Thank
you have
you.
an opportunity to turn those in as well.
Thank you so much.
And that goes for everyone. If you have an assignment that you want to turn in, maybe you didn't finish it on time, send me a WhatsApp and I'll make it available to you as well as everyone else. Alrighty. Any other questions or comments before we go into our rooms? Alrighty, so we have some questions that we want you to talk about in your rooms. I'm going to post them in your rooms, but it's from the chapter. And it's about the topic that we covered today. And you also want to think about, as we get closer, we got 5 more sessions. We're getting closer to the end of the course. Think about your presentation. So you're either going to do it live or you're going to record it, but think about who's going to do what aspect of it and ensure that all the aspects that we talked about in the lecture and in class, they're incorporated in your business plan presentation. So I'm going to open the rooms and I'll see you in a bit too. So you're going to have about 35 minutes in the room just to give you an idea. So I'll see you in the rooms.
$25 is so fast.
Judlyn, are you not in your room?
I'm not in my room.
What's going on?
I don't know.
Let's see. Let me come back. I want to go to the different rooms, make sure they have the correct answers, the correct questions. I'll be right back.
Thank you.
Judlyn, which room are you in? What's the name of your room?
It's Stranger Blast.
Okay, all right.
Thank you.
Hello, Professor. I cannot join my team room. Can you help me for that?
Hello?
Professor, I cannot join my team room. I think there's some problem in the connection. I have been disconnected and I'm not able to join again. Can you help me for that?
Yes, which room are you in?
Special partners.
Okay, hold on one second.
Yeah, please. Thank you.
International partners. Okay, I see you here. All right, let's see. Okay, let's see. Most of us are back. In the main room. Are there any questions about what you need to do for the team activity or what you did? Anybody have any questions or comments? Anything come out of it that you thought was interesting or different? Yes, Samuel.
Professor, this recording that we need to record of a presentation is little new. So we are thinking that how we will, because I don't think we were mentally prepared from the beginning or from the middle of the course that we would need to record our presentation. I
Okay.
know yeah.
Right. So it is a presentation, right? So that means that you're presenting it. Usually when you have a PowerPoint presentation, you don't just send it to someone, you're actually using it as talking points. So we know in some cases we would have to present it. I think now we're talking about the mechanics of doing so. So what I heard in one room was that you would record it because of there may be issues with technology and slow networks and so forth. That's a good idea. We also have the option, as I mentioned before, of presenting it in class. So that's still an option. I'm going to look at the schedule and see if we can pull it together in class. I think it goes back to what was mentioned in, I forget which room it was, that the connectivity is an issue if we do it. So I'm open to suggestions, but you are going to present it one way or another. Again, part of the reason why you create a presentation is to present it. So mentally, you should be prepared to do that. In school, in business, if you're creating a presentation, you're not sending it out to an audience because the presentation is not comprehensive. It's got talking points. So someone has to do the talking. So I just want to put that out there. So I will take a look at the schedule to see if it allows for real time, which may not be feasible because everyone is in different time zones. Everyone is not on this channel at this time on Sunday. So we're going to think about the best way to do it. So recording might be the way. It could be that you do it in one recording. It could be that individuals submit their recording and their presentation of their piece. All right. So I'm open to ideas. So anyone else have any ideas how to best accomplish this presentation? Anyone have any input?
I agree on the recording because maybe we don't know the time if we can attend the live session or
Yeah.
not. So at least we can just send it.
Yeah, I agree with that. So it becomes more important. Thank you for that, Julian. It becomes more important that everyone understands their role and what they're presenting in the presentation. So that becomes very important. All right. Any other questions or comments about it? Questions, comments, anyone? I know that presenting is how many of you have anxiety about presenting? Raise your hand if you do. Like presenting something or speaking to an audience. Anybody have any anxiety about that? Raise your hand if you do.
How many what, sorry?
How many of you have anxiety about presenting, like speaking to an audience about something? So we got a couple people. Let me just see what we have here. All right, so yeah. So that's 100% normal is what I want to say. And I'll give you some tips. In an MBA program, part of the curriculum is that you are presenting information. And if you're not doing that in your other classes, I'm telling you for this class, you'll be presenting. That's part of your communications. It is a little scary. A lot of people are very anxious about presenting. Some people will do everything but present. I just want to say that. So if you're feeling anxiety about presenting, that's normal. Some ways to help with that is to know what you're talking about. That helps with the anxiety. If you understand the content, you know what you're talking about, it helps with the anxiety. Practice, 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 practice. So that's going to help you with that. And really, it's just a matter of doing it over and over and over and over and over and over again. That makes the anxiety kind of go away. Maybe not 100%, but it does help with it. When I was in B school, as you are, I was petrified about presenting because I thought that other people were so much better than me in presenting and they were so comfortable in presenting. So, I did have that, being anxious about it, but it's a necessary evil. You have to be able to communicate your ideas to an audience of 1, 10, 50, 100, what have you. It's something that you have to do. So hopefully you'll have an occasion in this class to work through that anxiety. So I understand it. It's normal, but you're going to be okay. I would reiterate that you know your subject that you're talking about, that you know it backwards and forward. So take the time to start rehearsing what you're going to be saying and so forth. Anybody else that didn't raise their hand about presenting that has any input to help your teammates or your classmates with being anxious about presenting? Anyone have any input about that?
Actually, Professor Patricia, the main constraint that we are facing inside our team, for example, is that the time zone difference between all of us, because I am in Cairo, Samia is in New York,
Yes.
Deline is
So
in Canada.
we talked about recording it so that
Yes.
the time zone, so you can record it in your own, and then you can submit that recording and put it together. Okay?
Yes.
Okay. Any input in helping others overcome being anxious about presenting? Anyone have any input besides what I offered to help or guide them in presenting?
Maybe we'll put some time allotment so that we cannot consume all the times. Others have time to present also.
Yes, I'm gonna next time we meet, I'm gonna tell you exactly what the time is so that you know that if you're presenting this, it's 2 minutes versus 3 minutes. I've seen presentation go down the tubes because someone didn't stick in their time. So that it helps that you record your individual portion, because then you can have that time allotment to it. And because the topics in the plan, some are more complex than others, you have more time in one area than others. For example, explaining the cash flow, that's an area that, it might be more than 2 minutes. Or when you talk about the different financial tools that you're going to use to measure the health of the company. So that might take more. So you want to be able to apply the correct weight to the time so everyone has time to do it. And because you are going to record it, that's making me think I'll give you more time overall, because you are going to record it. It won't be live where you're cut off at 20 minutes. So I'll give you more time to present your portion, and maybe that'll be helpful, right? Excellent. All right. Samia, you have a question.
No, just one, just putting one thought on the table here, Professor.
Mhm.
So instead of really recording it separately and then putting it all together and really putting more work and effort there, instead, can we use the session time, like you divide us in the meetings and we go in our own channels and then we record it there. That way it's recorded in the teams, and then we don't have to really, work on really constructing it, adding it all together.
You can do that. However, Mohammed brought up a point, and others did. Everyone is not present in the session on Sundays. So that's why people are recording it at their convenience, if you will. Does that make sense?
Professor, in
Yes,
our
John.
group, mostly we haven't met our team members. We have a little problem is to discuss each other. but no one is, I think, now ready to meet every week. So later we may, I feel let annoying or maybe worry about our presentation, Professor. What should I do
Yeah.
for us?
So what you do, and I talked about this before, you want to assign those team members with what they need to do, and they have to be responsible for that. You just do what you're responsible for doing.
Yes, yes,
So
Professor.
so that's what you're going to do. So I'll reiterate it. If you have members that are not participating, not collaborating, I don't want you to focus on them. Focus on what you have to do. Everyone in your team should have responsibilities that they have to do. So I think for the most part, most of the teams you have participation. Some of the teams you have most people participating and some not participating. That is 100% normal in teams, in real life, and in team projects. And that's where the responsibilities are. If you remember earlier, we talked about the contract, and what the contract does is states what each person is responsible for. So think about that with this case. You have absentee team members. I've reached out to students that have not been showing up, and they haven't responded to me. So what we do is we say this is their assignment, and then you have the team grade at the end where you'll be grading each other, and that's both of those will be key inputs into what the final grade is. So everyone will be assigned an individual grade. So you're not riding on the coattails of those who are doing all the work. Okay?
Yes, yes, Professor. Thank you.
Okay. Any other questions or comments?
Sorry for today late, Professor. I didn't know about that time changes.
Oh, no worries. And I should have communicated it, except I didn't think about it either. I should have communicated that we're starting an hour earlier today. But yeah, no worries. Any other questions? Anybody have any comments about what the deliverable is? Okay. All right, so we know what lays ahead. We have 5 more sessions, I believe. Yes. So I'm going to look at what each of those sessions entail for the upcoming weeks, and hopefully I'll be able to give you more time, those that are present on Sundays, to work on the presentation. So the presentation is, in terms of the content, is 85, maybe 90% done. So you guys are in good shape. Any last questions before we wrap up today? Any last questions? Questions or comments? Questions about emails? Are you guys not able to access your emails? Is that what?
Yes, Professor, I'm not receiving any emails. The last email I received was on February 27th. And I think Mohammed tried to even sent one today, but I still didn't receive it. So something is wrong with my Outlook.
Oh, is it Outlook or is it the other email? Which one are you using? Outlook or the
365.
So you're not using webmail?
I think we are receiving we are using the 365 for the Windsor emails.
Okay, because I have 2 emails. I have 365 and I have
Yes, and it's the webmail, right? You're using
and
the
I have
webmail?
That's what I thought, but I have both. What and Sarah, I think Sarah's on the call. Sarah, do you know which email they should be using? The webmail or the email or the 365? I'll ask the question as well. I haven't had any issues in signing into either, so it might be a technical support issue. So let me ask. Okay, Sarah's not on here. Let me ask which email you should be using. And then if you continue to have issues after I confirm that, then you might want to contact technical support. But I'll let them. Anyone else having issues with their emails? besides the two people that spoke up? Okay.
Hello?
Yes.
Yes, Professor, I haven't been able to sign into my Outlook. I think it's ever since we started this semester, I haven't been able to use my Outlook, but I managed to log into my webmail.
Yeah, webmail is what I've been using. I'm not sure what the messaging is. Is the messaging to use webmail? Was that what you were
It
instructed?
was both. At the beginning, we were using both. Both of those were supposed to be working.
All right, so I still don't know which one. Okay, let me find out. I've been sending emails through webmail, and people have been responding, so I'm assuming that's working.
In classmates, there's a feedback on our webmail that we must provide from our professors.
So it's webmail.
Yeah, in our webmail, there's a feedback that we need to answer it for.
Oh yeah, I saw
all
that.
our
I saw
professors.
that. Yeah, so that was webmail. I'm thinking that you should be. Okay, let me say this. I have been communicating to you via webmail. You might want to find out from your other professors. I haven't used 365 to communicate to you. I've used webmail. And I don't think we're having any issues with webmail. It's the 365. So find out from your professors if they're communicating to you via webmail or 365. And then we can go from there. I'll check with the school to see what's the preferred method.
Okay, thank you, Professor.
Okay, you're welcome. Any other questions or comments before we move?
I have only one a comment that I noticed since I joined the university, that the Office 365 mail only work when we communicate from the same email bases, like, or mail domain, like as somebody using university mail communicate another one with the university mail, but it don't receive any external emails.
Ah, okay.
Yeah.
And that's probably why we're using webmail, right?
Yes.
That's a good point. So I will continue to use webmail, and then you want to, find out from each of your professors what they're using, because they may need to use webmail. All right, everyone, we're at the top of the hour. Thank you so much for your attention and participation today. And I hope that you guys have a great week ahead of you. And I'll see you next week. Hit me up in WhatsApp if you have any questions during the week or comments. All righty.
Bye,
Bye.
everybody. Have a nice day or night.
Yes. Same to you, Elena.
Thank you, everyone.
Bye, Mohammed.
Bye,
Bye,
Professor.
Sandra.
Have a good day.
Bye. Thank you, John.
Bye, everybody.
Bye, Noran. Elena.
Bye.
Bye.